But one man who's all about mist, and that is Slick Mist, Lucas Slick Mist. You like that segue there? Tommy Dreesy, Mr. Hollywood is here with me. Tommy, you've been racing hard this weekend. First of all, tell us what happened yesterday, because you were in all sorts of shenanigans.
Yeah, I was either classic Tommy or the other Tommy, I don't know. But the first half of the race, I'd say, was some of the best racing to watch for the fans and stuff. I got a lot of texts and emails and with Boris and Dyson and Ernie and myself. We were just a freight train, just going through. And first half of the race was great. I was kind of like buying my time. And unfortunately, I thought I made a couple mistakes. I went off. And then it turned out later, I got a little note from Dyson and a little note over here in turn 3 that there was a little bit of antifreeze.
Ah, okay, that's what it was.
And I just made I don't know what I could have done, but it really takes your heart out. And I got pretty upset on the radio. So for everybody that was listening on the radio, I apologize to my team and all the folks out there. Somebody told me, hey, my grandmother's listening today, so I'm going to give you a hint on the radio. Grandma.
Hey, listen, Tommy, you say what you like. You're living the dream. We're just watching. We love it.
Oh.
But you've got it. You're up against it again today. There's a chance for you to improve on the points. Things are quite moving quite quickly. This is a doubleheader this weekend. And as you said to me at the beginning of the weekend, this is an important weekend because it can change everything. You're in it, and you've got a chance of moving forward again. But today's going to be all the classes. How hard is that going to be? We're looking down at VIR. We can see how narrow it is. There really isn't a lot of places to overtake, so you've got to be having your wits about you today. Yeah,
we're going to be running with, we're used to running with traffic because we've got the GT class and the T8, the 3 and 4, and so those guys are getting used to us, so we've been running together. The tricky one's going to be the TA2 cars, but they're going fast enough that I don't think we're going to really lap a lot of them. So the one thing about the TA2 cars, though, they got their own races going, just like the other guys and girls. And so you got to watch out. You got to know when somebody's, you're going to split their race up. You got to be cool with them, too. So I think patience is going to be a huge factor today. Over 40 cars on the track. It's going to be nuts.
Well, Tommy, as we take a look at the next field coming out, and there's some great single-seaters here coming through, a lot of Brabhams, a lot of Chevrons. Have you ever done historic racing yourself?
So I actually didn't know about SCCA or club racing. I raced illegally in the hills of Hollywood.
Oops. Well, that's how racing starts, isn't it?
Yeah, Mulholland Drive. And if I made a mistake, I'd wind up 300 feet down in somebody's pool. So I went from there to, a couple of older guys that I knew. They got me into vintage racing. So I used to drive their cars all the time. And then I had, I started beating them a lot pretty bad. And then they said, get your own car. So I've raced a 65 Roadster Corvette, a Lola Spider T70 Mark IIIB, and one of my favorite, those were all great cars to drive, but one of my favorites was a Formula 5000.
Yeah, and, a lot of power in that.
Well, I didn't really know the history of it, so I just got in the car and started driving, and about 2 seasons later, these guys came up to me and they said, you're going way too fast in those cars. Why don't you try to go Trans Am racing? And that's how it all started. Like, they wanted to probably save me from getting hurt pretty bad because we were really going fast. And now one of my favorite vintage cars I still have, and you'll see it at Laguna Seca, I think, is my Chaparral. It's the only one left, nice. My Chaparral Camaro, to maybe run with the Trans Am guys over there, the historic group. So that should be fun coming up. And, hey, I just wanted to say thank you to my team, Burton Racing, Lucas Oil, Slick Mist, the Green Light team, Trans Am team, Tony Perella, you guys, to put this all together. It's just amazing. During one of the toughest years
no kidding.
That the world has gone through, and that shows the passion that, we're scraping and begging to stay out here. And, hopefully we're giving some entertainment to a lot of the folks out there watching TV, watching the streaming, and hopefully we bring a little excitement in their life. So I'll go out there today and I'll try to watch my P's and Q's, kinda.
Now listen, I love Ernie Francis Jr. like everybody, but I want to see him get into a fight.
No,
a
no,
proper
no.
race fight.
He's gotten into fights, but only for a couple, maybe a lap or two. So the kid is good. You know, I got to say, the kid and the team, they're very good.
And he's really nice too.
They're very good.
You
And
can't say a bad word about him.
I hate it. He's so nice.
I know.
Yesterday we had a good battle. I was behind him the whole time. He was like a fullback for me, and you know, we were like just cruising. I'll tell you, him and I learned about aero. I don't know if he felt it the way I did, but we went through the S's with that big hole for us, and you know, we lost all the downforce. And I think I saw his wheels and my wheels just popping a wheelie going through the fast S's there. So we learned a little bit about aerodynamics here and started popping out a little bit and getting that air down on the nose. But
I know you got to be enjoying racing the legend that is Boris.
And
Poncho
was great
Weaver.
to see Boris. Great to see Boris here. You know, they did a good job with that new car. Menard's going to be in the car today.
Yeah.
And Dyson's always going to be there. So, you know, I start next to Ernie, and, you know, we're just going to have to go as fast as we can and just really want to put in a good show, and I really, really want to pressure that kid.
Fair enough. Okay, well, we're about to get underway for our next race here, and as you can see, it's a host of single-seaters coming your way, mostly from the late 60s all the way up through to the 90s. My thanks to Tommy Dreesy. We'll be seeing him in action in the Lucas Mist car later, and hopefully the mist will have risen by then. But he loves my jokes. So, as you can see, they are just crawling now. And now they accelerate away. A beautiful sight and sound here for the Haycock Classic Gold Cup Group 2 Feature Race 2 as everybody dives towards the horseshoe for the first time. And it is the number 58 of Graham Alderman in the Brabham F2 who leads the way. Coming through NASCAR for the first time. Saw these guys in the rain, and I felt for them because it was really, really tough yesterday with the rain pouring down on them. But they managed to squeak through. And really quite different in terms of the designs of these cars. There's the number 35. That's a Dick Lear Lotus 61 as they head under the bridge and through the Snake. And you really do see it from above, just exactly how this circuit pans out and how demanding it is physically from left to right, especially in these little single-seaters. At least they're out of the mist because the mist is high at the moment, so they're getting a clear view. And we've got a good race starting to develop here at the lead as they head out of Oak Tree and onto the back straight for the first time. And at the moment, it's Graham Alderman leading the way. Jeff Brabham in second place. Travis Engen, Ron Hornig, and Mark Giraud in fifth place. Scott Fairchild, sixth. Michael Hummel in seventh place. Dave Fairchild in eighth. Mark Clark in ninth position. And Thomas Goodrich in 10th as they come down to the roller coaster for the first time, in anger, as it were. We've got a couple of good battles now starting to develop. Just coming down the hill, Scott Fairchild in the number 20, the Zinc C10. I love the low rumble of these cars, really beautiful sounding. And I hope you're getting the sound at home as well as I am up here. And here comes Mark Giraud in the Brabham BT29, the blue and yellow that you're looking at, number 59. And he's being pursued very closely by the 32 of Ron Hornig in the BT35 Brabham. Can't miss the number 59 of Mark Giraud in that distinctive helmet. Very nice indeed. But Alderman leads, and he's got, well, a little bit of a gap at the moment, but everybody's now pocketing into race battles. But it's Alderman at the front, then Jeff Brabham in second place. It's great to have a legendary name out there like Jeff Brabham. Travis Engen in third place at the moment. And SVRA in full flurry here at VIR. And now we've got a battle. Down the back straight they come. And they're side by side. Look at this. Absolutely perfect. And he's got him down that long back straight that goes on forever. And you've got to get the work done before you get to the corner and start turning in and heading downhill. Because if you don't, then it's real trouble. We saw JP Southern, who we hope to see racing in Trans Am later today, going right tumbling off the circuit at the end of the long straight, and his race was done fairly early on in the race yesterday, but we hope to see him back out in action as the 83 of Jeff Brabham now putting some real pressure on our leader. And as they come towards our position, this is a great battle for the lead now. Brabham looking to the inside, can't make it done there. He's going to have to wait. He could try going around the outside. We've seen that here because you have the line for NASCAR, which is the next corner coming up. But you've got to get very tucked in, and you've got to almost get it done on the exit of Horseshoe. And he's not close enough, as you can see, on this particular lap. So good job done by Graham Alderman as these two go at it again. And they're pulling away from the rest of the field. Some 8 seconds now to Travis Engen in third. So it's Alderman, Brabham and Engen at the moment, and there you see it, 8.4 seconds. Giraud just behind them, then Hornig and Fairchild. And this our Group 2 feature race with cars from, well, as early as 1968, all the way up to, well, we've got a 79 Zinc, as I mentioned earlier, and then a 99 Formula Ford also out there. We haven't got a glimpse of him just yet. But most of these cars, late 60s, early 70s, single-seater. Back then, of course, Formula 1, Formula 2, a lot of the drivers did both back in the day. And they would have long weekends where they would either be doing Formula 1 or Formula 2 and Formula 3. Sometimes as many as 3 different categories in a weekend. And there's the number 11 of Michael Hummel in the Crossall 35F on his own at the moment. But Alderman continues to lead. Brabham, though, all over the back of him. So we've got a good battle for the front. We've had some really good battles. I know this is vintage racing, but they go at it for sure. And as they come past my commentary position again, the leaders, they're still going side by side. And Brabham desperately trying to get round. Jeff Brabham. Of course, Matthew Brabham doing truck racing now. And David, of course, developing the Brabham car. There's the 21. David Fairchild, currently in 6th position at the moment. And through comes Michael Hummel. And David Fairchild in the 21, trying to hold off number 5, Mark Clark in the Crossall 32F. So like I said, this race has kind of developed into pocket racing almost, where we've got little pockets of 2 cars racing against each other, but that's as it should be. And as Ben mentioned earlier, a lot of these guys race in different categories as the day goes on, and also they know each other very well, very used to racing against each other. And Joshua Mitchell currently in 11th in the number 800, Lotus 18. And you can see the distinctive Lotus yellow and green colors. Quite unusual, though, for a Lotus, but you can see the distinctive scheme. And like I said, everything else that you're looking at, besides perhaps the helmet, the roll bar, obviously the GoPro on top, those are the modern touches, but everything else is as original as it can be. Those are the rules, and it's a real almost a badge of honor to get it right, where you come with the right stuff. You don't want to be scrutinized and find out that you're putting extra parts that aren't meant to be there. Everybody goes with the spirit of vintage racing, and that goes for the racing itself as well, because the one thing you don't want to do with these priceless cars, and they are literally priceless cars, some people collect art, put it on a wall. We actually race it. It's always fun. But yeah, the whole spirit of this is you race hard, you race fast, but you don't try to hit each other, and you certainly don't get aggressive. That doesn't make you last long in a paddock like this. And I'm rejoined again by Ben Sissel. We've got some good racing at the front. Great racing at the front.
Yeah, I got to watch the start. I love, my favorite open wheel cars are the Formula Bs, and when we have a group like this of Formula Bs, it's always going to be good racing. I'm sure you've mentioned that the Jeff Brabham is out there.
Yeah, I was actually going through how Matthew is in truck racing. David's designed the car. Jeff's still racing. Here he is, second place. But it's nice to have an original out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got Brabham's racing and a real Brabham. Racing a Brabham.
And you've got to see, he goes everywhere with that car, and you need to come and look at that car up close, because it's like a Concours winning show car with the paint job and everything. And then he's out there usually winning races. It's rare to see him in second place.
Well, it's interesting, obviously the Brabham legacy continues, but all of the Brabham juniors have been great racing drivers, good racing drivers. Matthew Brabham, now racing in trucks, was an Indy Lights champion. Jeff and his brother David have raced at IMSA and all around the world, from Le Mans, you name it. David, of course, all the way to Formula One, but all of them handy. And Jack, you might have heard of him. Well, he started it all and was a 3-time Formula One world champion.
Yeah. So this is Graham Edelman here in first place. And knowing Graham loves racing. He races in all different kinds of cars. So does his wife, Sharon, and as does their son, Owen. And Graham is absolutely ecstatic to be racing this well with Jeff Brabham. He loves racing in all different kinds of cars and classes. But for him, being able to race with a legend like Jeff Brabham right behind him in a hard race like this, he's just having the time of his life.
And to be fair, he hasn't just got a fancy name, i.e. a racer's name. Jeff has got quite a lot of accolades to his own name. He is a great racing driver in his own right, forgetting the Brabham name for a second.
Oh, yeah. He was a champion several times in that Nissan. That was one of the prettiest cars, and it dominated IMSA for quite a while.
Well, him and David had a long time in sports car racing, and very successful indeed.
So Jeff Brabham, and I'll tell you how this happened. We do this thing called the Vintage Race of Champions, the charity Pro-Am race, and Jeff was called in. And Ron Hornig, one of our drivers who has these things, so he became friends with Jeff, and he said, hey, I've got some Brabhams. Would you like to come race with us? And at first I think Jeff thought, I don't know about this vintage racing thing. He came out, did it, fell in love, and last year it was rare not to see him at a racetrack racing with us. And how cool is that? And that's happened to a lot of guys. You see Willie T. Ribbs here a lot, Jeff Brabham, Al Unser Jr. We were talking about Roberto Guerrero and Davy Jones. They both work for the Jaguar program that's usually with us. And, these are all legends just walking around because they're all racers. Ray Evernham's here this weekend because he's a racer, and he loves it. It's all about just the family, the atmosphere, and, it never gets out of their blood. No,
there's no question about it. As we look at Scott Nettleship
That's a pretty car. Yeah.
It is a pretty car.
And he's a really neat guy, been racing a long time. His wife is a really fantastic, Christine, vintage racing photographer, and she's the registrar for another fantastic vintage race group, VDCA. Look at this pass right here on the Formula Junior coming into one.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned, that Jeff racing a Brabham car, as it were. It's all very well talking about the family itself, but the mark that is Brabham. Bernie Eccleston ran Brabham in Formula One for so many years, and sadly now Formula One's lost its last real name in Williams. Brabham long gone, and it's nice to be able to see that David has basically kept the Brabham mark running in sports cars and developing that sports car, which looks absolutely fantastic. I haven't seen it up close, But this is in the last few years he's developed this.
Look at this
and,
going up the S's.
It just keeps the legacy going, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah, I talked to Jeff about that at Portland. He was our Grand Marshal a couple of years ago, and he had some great stories. A true gentleman, Jeff Brabham, great racer, and he's loving this too.
And he's not done with this race yet either.
No, he's a very calculating person. Jeff, he was probably one of our pro racers that I saw make the switch to a vintage racing mentality better than anybody. He's not going to take any unnecessary risks. He loves these cars. And, he's not going to be happy with the second place, but if it was a good race, he'll be happy with the second place finish. But I was talking to Jeff in Portland, and this was actually this car, I think it was after his dad had sold the company. And so he had never raced a Brabham ever until he started racing in vintage with Ron Hornig's cars.
I guess that will spark his interest in it and how it all came to be, and then the different parts and how they came to be designed and so on and so forth. That's, I think, what makes it really interesting. Nettleship continuing in the 63. And this our Group 2 race 2 for the weekend.
So again, I don't know if you've covered this because I came in late, but this is the Formula Ford here. So this is
we've hardly seen
spec platform, Ford engines, and we had lots of different manufacturers in Formula Ford, but another very competitive open wheel class, kind of a point of entry. A lot of times in SCCA, they would start in Formula V and move up to Formula Ford, which was a little bit faster, a little bit more competitive, and then you could move up to Formula B, and it was kind of a feeder series for either IndyCar or Formula One or the open wheel. So we're seeing really 3 classes that were feeder series, because you could start Formula Junior or Formula V, go up to Formula Ford, and then you go up to Formula B, and then you're at Formula 2 and Formula 1.
Yeah, this is where you cut your teeth, isn't it? And I was saying that back in the day when these cars were new, you might see Formula 1, Formula 2 drivers just, throwing themselves around in a smaller car like this just to basically participate on the same track. A bit like our Trans Am guys do now with NASCAR.
Yep.
Just get some extra track time in a slightly lower Formula car. Final lap then here in our Group 2 race, and Jeff Brabham has chased down the man of the moment, Graham Alderman, throughout this race, and it continues right to the end, I'm sure.
I just love that's Mark Giroux there in the blue and yellow, and look at the car, just the big fat tires, absolutely no downforce. They're tough to drive. I wish we could see an IndyCar race like this. I wish they would do an IndyCar race like this, see what the drivers could do without any driver aid or downforce.
Yes, that would make it interesting. So Alderman continues to lead here on this final lap. You're watching SVRA action from Virginia International Raceway, and we're starting to get the beginnings of a beautiful day here in September. Started very misty. We've had a lot of rain throughout the weekend, but now we're set fair for Sunday. The mist has lifted.
Travis Engen there in the 1, followed by his kind of teammate, Mark Giroux, right behind him. These guys always race really hard. And so we're guessing, did Graham Edelman win? We didn't see the outcome. So there's Graham there.
Ooh,
somebody's off there at 1.
Yeah. Gone a little too far. That horseshoe. Dropped a shoe. So great stuff from our Group 2 action. And like you said, it's great to have a legendary name. Alderman did hold on. And we'll be very thankful of a scalp that included both the car and the name. Jeff Brabham taking second place in a Brabham BT35.
Did you notice that? I love that about vintage racing. These guys had a great race. They're friends, and they pull up next to each other and just celebrate. If you're vintage racing, you're living the dream. A lot of these guys and women always wanted to be race car drivers, but business and life got in the way, and now they are out here, getting the chance to race and live the dream.
Yeah, the kids
and
have grown
do
up.
the stuff they want
time
to
to
do.
get back the toys, yeah? I tell you what, Graham Edelman will be happy because his was a 68 Brabham versus Jeff's 71 Brabham, so he could claim even more kudos there. So great stuff from our Group 2 And that was a race that went all the way with Adelman and Brabham and put on a real show for us. And Jeff just not being too aggressive, but pushing hard, and some really nice smooth racing by both of them in those two Brabhams to put on a show for us here in Group 2. Heard from Tommy Dreesy just a moment ago. He'll be in action with Trans Am. And we've got quite a few stories from Trans Am to tell you about. Mike Skeen, the TA2 leader, swapping cars. We'll tell you about that later. And also Alex Wright. And we also want to get you an update on JP Southern, who had a big off yesterday. Came and joined me in the commentary booth, which was rather interesting. But the youngster JP Southern had a big off. And confirmation of the result then. 2FA, Graham Alderman in the Brabham F2 BT23C, ahead of the legend that is Jeff Brabham in a Brabham himself. Travis Engen in third, Mark Giraud, another familiar face to this sort of racing, in fourth position in a BT29, and another Brabham of Ron Hornig that Ben was talking about in fifth place ahead of Scott Fairchild, Michael Hummel, Dave Fairchild, Mark Clark, and Scott Nettleship in the Crossall 45F. Rounding out the top 10 in our Group 2 feature race 2 here for the Haycock Classic Gold Cup.